Hello, Ooh, recording in progress. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are calling in from. We are here for week 2 of the build sprint, and we're back with Jared for live office hours. So we have 4 startups that are going to talk with Jared, and I will remind all of you that we will also do some Q&A from founders after the 4 startups talk with Jared. So put your questions in the Q&A box, upvote the ones that you would like to see answered, and I will pass it over to Jared to get started.
Awesome. Thanks, Joan. And thanks, everybody, for joining this week 2 of the Build Sprint. I am excited to do some office hours with the 4 companies who volunteered to come on stage and tell us about their companies. So for those of you who haven't done this before, it's real easy. Just turn on your camera when it's your turn, and we'll talk about your company. And I love doing this because so many of the things that we talk about for one company are probably transferable to your company and could be helpful for you as well, because it turns out that there's a lot of similarities here. So let's get started. Why don't we start with Tastenote?
Hey, Jared. Hey, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Shen. Very nice to meet you all.
It's great to meet you, Shen.
Nice to meet you, Jared.
Thanks for agreeing to come on the show. Why don't you just start by telling everybody what you're working on?
Yeah, sounds good. Happy to. So we're building Tastenote. Think of it as Shopify and TikTok had a baby. But basically what that means is that we're building a video first storefront software tool for restaurants to power their online ordering through their own direct channel. And the pain we're solving is that as restaurants go online, and especially after COVID, they're losing the hearts and soul that once made them special. For example, think about the PDF menu you saw online, the poor pictures on Yelp, and when you search Thai food on Uber Eats, I'm in Brooklyn, I saw 70 of them, but there's no way for me to tell them apart. We're solving this by leveraging the rise of short videos and infuse them throughout the ordering journey as a way to build that human connection between the restaurants and eaters. So for example, you scroll through the videos of restaurants' ambiance, their food highlights, their backstory before you decide to order. You see video of the chef who cooked your food, and you can tip them to thank them. And as a result, we want to increase their conversion, basket size, tipping rate, and also their retention. So basically giving restaurants a tool to better control their business. We're currently building MVP and launching our first phase next week. So super excited. And then one more thing I will add is that me and my co-founder, we actually met on YC Startup School co-founder matching platform. We met 6 months ago and everything is going super well. So kudos to you guys, and for founders out there still looking for co-founder, just a little bit more patience and perseverance, you will also get there.
That's awesome. That's great to hear about meeting your co-founder.
Yeah, it's definitely a great platform. Love it.
Folks may not know, but Catherine Lee, who's on this call now, is the primary person who built the startup school co-founder matcher. It was really her project, and she did an incredible job. And look at what's happened. Now you've met a co-founder. So that's super cool. Okay, why don't you ask us the questions that you came here to Office Hours to ask?
Yeah, so I will start by asking maybe a question shared by all the founders. I'm curious how you think as founders we should benchmark our speed, because we're always trying to hustle fast. We know we're building or trying as much as we can, but how do we know we're building fast enough? And what's kind of the tangible benchmark that we can look for to really tell, hey, can we go even faster? And what kind of feedback we can get from that specifically?
Yeah. Well, are you pre-launch or post-launch?
We're now pre-launch, but post-launch pretty soon in 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, pre-launch, it's a little bit tricky is it's hard. It's a little bit hard to quantify things like speed of development. So pre-launch, basically what you want to be doing is you want to be racing towards launching as quickly as possible. Post-launch, you want to have a KPI, a key performance indicator, which is like a key metric that you want to be tracking and growing week over week. And for an early stage company, just as like a rule of thumb for a company that just launched, if you can grow your KPI 10% per week, that's probably good. Obviously, that's not going to 100% apply to every company in the world. There are probably exceptions to that, but it's just like a rough rule of thumb to have as a baseline. 10% growth week over week for a company that's just launched in the past like month or so, like you're doing well. So, so post-launch, do you know what your key metric is going to be?
Yeah, I think for us, it's a little bit different because it's a SaaS model. And then I'm not sure if, like scaling, sell more solution is the best metrics, or, actually honing on the conversion or the impact that we can make on one or few business that we're working with. So yeah, I guess just like kind of two kind of paths. How do we kind of pick one that can really, help us focus on like what's the most important for early stage SaaS company?
Mm-hmm. How do you get the content? The videos?
I mean, there are a lot of different ways. You can obviously curate a community of people, like kind of like micro influencers who will go to restaurants and take them for you. But so far probably the most efficient way we've found is we actually work with restaurants. They agree to work with us, and then we power their online ordering, their in-store QR code ordering, with kind of a bare product without a lot of video, because most of the restaurants don't have it, but we just launch it as is, which is kind of on par with the experience of platforms like ChowNow, Toast today. But on that platform, since we're owning the touch point with consumers, we ask them, hey, if you want to submit video, since you're eating there already, we're going to give you a little bit incentives. And that way you're kind of just targeting those who are eating there, and then you don't have to like pay a lot more for those people to like actually go there. So we're testing it out as well, but we're pretty bullish on that being efficient, scalable, and cheap.
How many videos do you have?
Per restaurants, we have, I mean, I think this is also
no, just like total, how many videos have you managed to collect?
Got it. No, so we're kind of taking the restaurants per restaurants approach.
Okay.
And now we're working with just around 10 restaurants, and per restaurants we have probably like 20 videos, but they're like a lot more specific compared to the ones you see on TikTok, because the intention is quite different. On TikTok, just for entertainment, you just want to quick view of 10 seconds. Before this, we are trying to take video of individual item, of the ambiance, of the owner, if they have some story to tell. So it's a little bit different, but overall, we're also trying to understand what's the minimum viable video selection per restaurant that can, hopefully maximize the conversion.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What else did you want to talk about today, Shen?
Yeah, and I guess, like since we're talking about SaaS, I'm also curious in terms of SaaS companies MVP, because you can always build a lot more features. You can match what competitors are doing. How should founders for SaaS company think about deciding on the MVP set feature, feature sets? Because you can, by building more feature, you can always sell faster, but obviously it takes more time. So just thinking about like the framework for us to think about like, when should we feel comfortable going out as an MVP and start selling?
Maybe I'm a little confused. You're calling this a SaaS app. Is it one app per restaurant or one app with all the restaurants?
No, this is basically, think about Shopify, right? Like you go to a website to order from restaurants, and this is a pretty significant traffic for restaurants today. About probably 20% of their orders are online sales, and then half of that is their own channel, and half of that is Uber Eats, DoorDash, Postmates, all combined. So we're powering that half that they're owning today, and basically optimizing that flow. So that will be going through their own website.
Oh. So I go to the restaurant's website, and then what? I get is this a mobile app or a web product?
It's a web product to start with.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I got confused. I thought it was an app. Okay. And I go to their website, and then you show me a bunch of videos of their food. And the idea is that if I see those videos, I'm more likely to order from them as opposed to bounce.
Yeah.
Or are you sending traffic to their website?
We're not sending traffic to the website yet. You know, you can, like, people search the restaurants. If they get to the landing page, they will see the storefront that we power. And it is not just videos. We'll actually design a storefront that makes more sense for restaurants and embed them, you know, kind of in an organic way to drive conversion.
You're hoping to replace the restaurant's existing website and improve conversions? Or,
Yes.
or are you building websites for restaurants that don't have websites yet?
Both.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I think one is website, but second is just the online ordering flow, which is actually separate from the website. Think about Toast. You know, you go to restaurants, they have an online order button, and you go there, and that's the button that we want to kind of, you know, cover today.
Okay, so Manuel is saying it sounds like a marketplace, but I think I misunderstood that it was a marketplace. It's not a marketplace. It's actually what we would call a white label B2B SaaS product sold directly to restaurants. Okay, got it. Well, first off, I think you might want to explain that sort of upfront, because ideas like this typically are like consumer apps from founders who are trying to compete with Yelp and other like food companies by creating like a consumer destination app. So I think it's interesting that you're not going down that road, and instead you're doing a SaaS solution sold directly to restaurants. So for SaaS, it's actually much simpler than for a consumer app. For SaaS, you want to be charging your restaurants. If they're willing to pay for it, then it's valuable. And if they're not, then you have to question whether it's really working for them or not.
Absolutely. Yep.
So yeah, so essentially when you can sell something to a restaurant, you reach your MVP.
Got it. Yeah. So is that, I mean, sounds like kind of prototyping and then just like hypothetically asking them, hey, is this feature set enough for you? Would that be kind of a good exercise to go through before you decide to commit to building everything and start selling?
Well, it sounds like you've already built a lot of this, right?
We're now building just a menu functionality, like a menu with videos embedded. But obviously, if you want to build an online end-to-end ordering flow, you have to do POS integration, etc.
Oh, I see. Yeah, for sure. You want to try to figure out what features they can live without and what features they can't. And if you sell to businesses, it's a little bit easier to do because you can talk to them and you can ask them. I mean, like, you know, POS integration, that's going to take me 2 months. Do you really need that? Or can I get this thing live today?
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. Awesome, Shan. I really enjoyed chatting about this. This was super interesting.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time, Jared.
Good luck with the launch in 2 weeks.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
I'll keep you guys posted. Thanks.
Yeah. Arthur from IZZI Gaming.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Jared.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Why don't you start by telling us what you're working on?
Sure. So we are a games coaching platform. So on one side, we have a gamer that wants to play better. And from the other side, we have high ranks, even pro players that can make money by teaching, selling courses and coaching, like one-on-one coaching. And we do that having a platform connecting how this gamer is performing, like what is the type of his gameplay and etc., and connect him with the best content and the best coaches using the game's API.
So it's a marketplace for finding coaches.
Exactly. Games coaching.
Okay. Got it. So it's like, I'm a video gamer. I want to coach. You'll show me a bunch of coaches.
Exactly.
Here, let me actually drop the link in the chat for people who want to check it out. This is IZZI Gaming.
And we are starting with Brazilian gamers. So you might want to translate that.
Okay. So if you don't speak Portuguese, it might be rough.
Yeah, you can translate it in Google.
Okay. Cool. Makes sense. And how far along is this? Is it launched?
Yes, we launched. We started last year as an MVP, no platform. We got $4,000 total GMV coaching transactions, and we have about 250 paying for at least one session. And now we have the platform working on League of Legends, connecting with the game API, etc. And adding our challenge right now is when what side do we need to focus? Like we have the player who buys the coaching, and we have the coaches, and we are in this. We don't know yet like what is the best one to focus first. The coaching is building a SaaS for the coach to like manage sessions, creating their own academies, or going to the users, building like a freemium to send him like videos from YouTube. We are in this situation.
Very cool.
And like for what we saw is like we tried to reach coaches who already had an audience, so they can bring the people want to learn from them. But we felt like they are not like yet like business. They don't take like a business like some like really simple things, like they don't use the link on their bios in Twitter, for example, to convert more students. And we have this situation with them. And from the other side, we already have some good features for players to use like a freemium of the platform. And this other way would like bring people to after buy coaches or buy courses and etc. We are trying to do the both right now. And we don't know if that's the best strategy.
So I just want to highlight something that you said that's pretty interesting for other founders who might be building marketplace companies. So for founders who are building marketplaces, which is like very common, the biggest problem at the start is the chicken and egg problem, right? For a two-sided marketplace, you need supply and demand, which in your case is you need coaches and you need people who want to be coached. And it's tricky to get coaches before you have anybody who wants to be coached, and it's tricky to get people who want to be coached before you have any coaches. And so one way that you solve the chicken and egg problem is you brought coaches on board who already had a bit of a following. They already had channels, whether it's on Twitch or someplace else. And when they signed up for IZZI, they then promoted your product to their fan club, bringing the other side of the market along with them. And this is a great strategy for solving the chicken and egg problem that works across verticals for many marketplace companies. So it's great that you figured that out.
Thank you. And this is what we are doing right now. And I have another question about and like maybe related to going after like the VC way of getting investments. Like, should we like have a really low like percentage? We monetize taking a percentage of every transaction. So is it good? Like, is it the best option for us to like have a really low percentage, like a really low fee to start with those coaches, and like don't have like a unit economics like getting up, and after we have like getting VC investment, etc. After trying to raise that, is this like healthy for the startup?
So you're asking, how high a fee should I charge? Like, I take a fee when somebody books a session. Should I take a really low fee and a sort of like discount my product, like effectively charge a very low price for it? Or should I charge a high fee to try to really make some money from the sessions that are being booked? Well, I turn the question back to you. How much do the coaches care? Have you asked them how they feel about paying a fee?
Yes, like normally the big coaches, they care a lot, like 10% fee is a lot. And like the small coaches, they are okay. And like what we think to do right now is for these large coaches, we are going low. And we have a long-term strategy is that when the client comes from us, like it's in our platform, then hires coach, we take a high fee, like 25%. And when it comes from the coach audience, it's like 5%, like really low.
I was going to suggest that same thing. I think that's a very standard practice for marketplaces like this. And I think there's kind of an interesting general lesson in there for everyone. So in case you didn't get that, what Arthur is saying is that when the coach brings his own students on board, he's going to charge a very low fee. But when the coach brings But when Arthur's platform brings the coach a new student that they didn't know before, Arthur's platform makes the introduction, then he's going to charge the coach a high fee. And this is sort of a generalized pattern in marketplaces like this, which is that your platform basically does two things. It provides a utility service, which is providing the billing and the infrastructure for running sessions. And it provides marketing to the coaches. It brings them more students that they would otherwise not have gotten. And in general, you got to price the utility low because it's not worth that much. Coaches can kind of do it themselves using various off-the-shelf tools, and they're not willing to pay a lot of money for it. But the marketing you can charge a lot for because marketing is very expensive.
Yes. And how do you see like the timeline for this, Jared? Like, we start with just the utility, having like low margins, and we will be like VC money, and like for the seed stage, Series A stage, we then introduce the marketing. How can you see that, and from your experience with other marketplaces?
So when I say marketing, I don't mean running Facebook ads. Your platform is a form of marketing for the coaches.
Yes. Offering marketing for the coach.
Yeah, I don't think fundraising particularly plays into the question about how to price the product. I think how to price the product more comes into play from the underlying dynamics of your marketplace, what coaches are willing to pay for and what they don't want to pay for, which you figured out.
Okay, because like we have this sense, like should we like try to have the biggest base, like user base or biggest coach base we can have right now, having low fees, and then starting to
no, I don't think so. I don't think that really like supercharges growth. Like in general for marketplaces, discounting your transaction fee does not really supercharge growth. You want to charge a transaction fee that doesn't interfere much with growth.
Okay. So we can find this like optimal level of fee that okay. And I think one last question, like how do you see like companies from like we are starting in Brazil, like with Brazilian gamers, we have a huge local gamers, but like we see the opportunity to be the same player in the US and other countries. How do you see that, like for other marketplaces that started local? When is the best option to go global?
Usually later than you think. The best marketplaces, and this is broadly true across all categories, become very successful in one niche, which could be a country, it could be just, a vertical, like perhaps you just do like only one video game to start with, or you do, just like one corner of your market, you try to get it working really well, where you've got like a lot of coaches and a lot of students, and they're booking a lot of sessions, and it's a very healthy marketplace on both sides with a lot of transactions happening. You really want to try to get there in like one area, and then you want to expand one area at a time, because every time you expand, you basically restart your chicken and egg problem, right? So if you expand to the US, boom, now you've got no coaches and no students. It's hard to expand to new areas because every time you do it, you have to resolve the chicken and egg problem. And so the best way to do it is to get your first corner of the market working really well. So you have so much traction, you can get your Brazilian coaches to invite their American friends and use your traction in Brazil to basically jumpstart yourself in the next market. And that's why the next market you go after, you really want it to be some market that has a lot of overlap with Brazil. So it might not be the US, it might be someplace else in Latam because there's more overlap.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Great meeting you, Arthur.
Great, thank you, Jared.
All right, moving on to Airblock Technologies.
Hey, Jared. This is Brian from Airblock. Hey, how's it going?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for hosting this. I benefit so much from these office hours, and I was actually taking some notes from these other startups as well. So this is awesome.
Cool, awesome. Tell us what you're working on.
Yeah, totally. So Airblock goes back about a year and a half. Also, Janet is on the call too. She is our CEO and also my co-founder. And our vision is creating visible value chains from ground to sky for aviation and aerospace. So Janet definitely can speak to this, probably the closest, but just from her experience in the field for over 15 years, she worked for General Electric Aviation, she worked for Safran, and sort of our board of advisors has worked from a lot of these different maintenance manufacturing companies. And basically the supply chain of the value chain is incredibly paper-based, it's incredibly siloed. Every company is kind of doing it their own way, and it leads to a lot of friction. There's delays in getting planes back to people who need them. In terms of doing service and maintenance, it's incredibly friction filled. What we want to do is build Airblock network and Airblock platform to help connect these sort of friction fueled companies together and allow work to be seamless. The way that I've kind of been explaining it to other people is like what Salesforce did for email or sort of communications of creating data-driven analytics and metrics and tracking reporting. We want to be kind of like a Salesforce, but for value chains. So helping companies be more communicative, being able to run data and predictive maintenance over processes and operations, and really just helping to make the value chain move more efficiently and with less friction. So kind of like it's a supply chain, like these are partners that should be working together, and there aren't really softwares that do that. And it's kind of been neglected in terms of tech. So we're trying to fill that void. And we got some exciting news this past week. The DoD and the US Air Force, they run a program called AFWorks for flight operations and repair. So we just found out that we were selected for their showcase, and they have sort of a showcase program. And then they also have, Janet, it's like an OSR or a CSO. Yeah, CSO. So basically they greenlighted our technology and our platform for pitching to like more like government type contracts in their customer base. So it was like huge validation of what we're working on for like quite some time. And it's really exciting because there's a lot of validation of what we're working on. And we sort of have like that product market fit. So now we're just using the build sprint actually to like work on our product, build it up. Kind of, we're trying to get, I'm targeting sort of an end of month finishing off in sort of an MVP state. And we have around 7 companies that have signed letters of intent with us that want to sign on. So a lot of exciting stuff, but it's definitely been trying to figure out like where in the market we can play. There's a lot of companies that have made software for the aviation industry, but there's around $6 billion in supply chain inefficiencies, penalties, and fees. So there's a lot of pain and problems, and there are solutions, but they're not really solving the pain. Kind of like Band-Aid solutions, but it's not really like fixing the problem at the end of the day. So we're trying to fill that gap, and that's what Airblock will be for.
Sounds awesome. Congrats on the early success.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, Janet. I'm sure you can speak to that too. Like it's been definitely been exciting. A lot of ups and downs with startup life, but I think that we're definitely on the right path. So we're kind of just holding steady and keeping going.
I think Jared, just complementing a little bit what Brian was saying, we have already like confirmed or validated our idea, with NASA and AFWorks Innovation Challenge. I think like what is so we know the pain, we kind of know we are innovating on the solutions, and we are kind of interviewing prospective customers or trying to find a strategic partner to really find the value and what is our customers perceiving the value of the innovation or of our solution for their operations.
Okay. What did you guys want to talk about in these office hours?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say kind of like just to kick this off. So we kind of go through the process of like, what are we doing? And that was kind of like, that's where we figured out, okay, it's building, our decentralized network, it's building a platform. Front end is done, deployed blockchain network. I'm writing some of the smart contracts right now to help with decentralization of value chain data. But I would say, how do you recommend, like, just kind of to emphasize, so like we're pre-launch, right? We have a validated idea, we have a validated pitch, we have a validated idea, but we're like trying to actually use the build sprint to like launch our MVP and like actually have some people that are using it and have accounts. How would you recommend like setting up kind of like this next month? Like, we want to get more conversations happening with the industry, and our advisory board and Janet has been really helpful of getting conversations started, but it's kind of limited to like that. How do you recommend kind of doing like lead gen for SaaS? Like, I want to like have more conversations where like people are coming to us, like we're reaching out to people. Like, do you have any recommendations of how to get in front of people that would probably want to have an account with us?
How to do sales? How do we sell to aviation companies and get them in the door as customers? Yeah, great question. Well, how are you guys doing it now?
Yeah, Jen, do you wanna?
Yeah, we are approaching to our network that we already have from our advisors and myself in the industry, and having a meeting with the decision maker and ask them about their pains in our solution, and that's how we are approaching them right now.
Okay, so you're doing it through what we would call warm introductions, which is people in your network. So that's absolutely the place to start. It's great that you guys already have a network in the industry. That's going to make things a lot easier. Here's 2 ideas for you. So the first thing is the people who you're already talking to, they probably know other customers in the industry who they could introduce you to. If you can actually get them to use your product and to be successful with it and to really like it, it will be a lot easier to get them to make introductions to their friends who work in the industry who can also be customers. So like, that's a great path. It's like, let's launch the product, let's get them to use it, let's make them happy users. Happy users make introductions to more users. Okay, and then the second idea for you is you guys probably just need to get good at doing what's called cold outreach, which is basically reaching out to strangers in the aviation industry who you don't know and getting some percentage of them to agree to take a call with you, which is, it's a tough thing to do, but it's probably just going to be a part of building this business because you guys are building like vertical SaaS. It's a B2B enterprise kind of company. Most of those companies need to figure out how to do cold outreach. And like typically the way companies do it is they go to LinkedIn or some other place that lists your customers. There's a lot of sales tools out there now that will give you leads and email addresses of people who work in a particular industry. And you want to basically learn how to use those tools, learn how to get leads, how to get contact information, how to send good messages, how to call people, how to email people, how to send LinkedIn messages in order to get them to want to take a meeting with you and learn more.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think definitely cold outreach is like definitely one of the harder skills to like pick up on. So I think like more practice. Like, do you have any like strategies? Like, kind of, we definitely have credibility, right? Like we have awards, we lead on that. But is that sort of the messaging? It's like, you know, hey, we got into this program. Here's, you know, Airblock. We want to talk about this. Like, do you have time to set up, or do you have time for a 15, 30-minute meeting? Is it as easy as that and just kind of rinse and repeat?
Yeah, I mean, it will eventually be. It's not going to be at the beginning. At the beginning, you're going to have to experiment with a lot of different sales approaches, from asking them to talk to you on the phone, to asking them to sign up for your website, to just asking them a few questions about their business to try to figure out if they're a good potential customer or not. But yeah, I mean, eventually you want to get to the place where it's rinse and repeat.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. That's really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, great meeting you guys.
Yeah, great meeting you. Thank you.
Somebody asked in the chat about sales tools. One good one is a company called Apollo, which is actually a YC company. They have a really cool way of finding sales leads. So I'd check them out in addition to LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared.
Cool. All right, we've got one more. Wirlix.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Yeah, so I'm Priyanka and I'm the founder of Wirlix. So Wirlix is a new video-based social network for conversations. It's a TikTok meets Reddit, and we exist to combat social media echo chambers today and just a lack of opportunity for people to have quality discussions and quality debates in text-based comment sections. So our application is like a full screen video app where you can swipe through different videos. People can create their own topics and upload 60-second video opinions, and users can respond to those videos by answering a poll set by the moderator and by uploading 60-second video opinions to support that poll.
That's super cool. Okay, so it's an app, and I have just like a TikTok kind of feed of just videos that other people have recorded, and I just go through them. They're not people I know, they're just people who are on your app. I can play them, and then I can either like answer a poll, or I can like respond with a video response where I record a response, and then okay, got it.
Yep. And it's basically a public feed, so it's group discussion. So you have this feed like TikTok where you can swipe up to go to the next topic, and you swipe left to see the next video response. And at any point in the thread, somebody could respond with their own 60-second video opinion.
Really interesting. Okay, and is it launched?
Yes, so we actually launched 2 weeks ago, almost actually in alignment with when the build sprint started. So our build sprint goal was to get to 100 weekly active users.
Nice.
And to date, since launching, we have 50 weekly active users. And
That's really good.
Yeah, so thank you. It's been nice, I think, like just getting through the first launch to the App Store. We were on test flight for a little bit. We had like some, speed issues with just our video feed loading, but yeah, we were able to kind of get it over the finish line and just like launch it, which is nice. Yeah, so my question really was, I had a couple, but the first one was similar to Shen's, maybe, where we're a consumer application. So content is huge for us, just having content seeded on our feed so new users can come in and constantly see like new videos, new discussions being updated. So our goal for Build Sprint was 100 weekly active users. The way we are, I guess, talking about an active user is somebody who has a session every single week. So opens up the app for at least 1 minute. So like just watches at least one video per week. So that's kind of how we're defining it, but I would love some feedback on if that would be the right way to define a weekly active user.
Do you just mean anyone who comes to the app in that week who spends a minute on a video, you're counting as an active user, right? Like it doesn't matter whether they came the previous week or not. It's just if they came in this week and they watched a video for a minute, they're an active user for this week, right? Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. How many videos do you have?
Yeah, so we actually are just under 150 videos on the feed. Okay. And we have 42 discussions in total.
Okay.
So but I guess that's where what we're doing to seed the feed, which I would also love some feedback on, is we did raise a pre-seed round of funding. And I am a solo founder, so I am on the co-founder matching tool looking for somebody, but we're also like, speeding through the launch and getting other stuff done. So I'm trying to do both at the same time, but yeah, we're kind of, basically we started a creator program. So after we got some funding, I was kind of thinking, I was like, okay, how do I get as many like creators on the app as possible? Because at first my hypothesis was maybe I can get my friends on and I just want to see like what they do in terms of video posting. What I realized was it was maybe, not correct of me to think that, let's say, a friend of mine who doesn't post on any other social media platform super actively is going to come to mine and start posting a bunch of videos every single week. So we kind of shifted our target market and just honed in on creators. So people who are actually posting podcasts and posting videos super actively on YouTube channels. So what I did was I just got 2 interns to just start like prospecting and creating lists on TikTok. And we have this like cold outreach campaign going where we do like 7 touch points for these different micro influencers. So over the past 2 weeks, it's been super successful. Actually, we've reached out to about a total of 150 people, and we've been able to schedule 18 demos with these micro influencers. basically my question was, we're trying to structure the program in a really creative way where maybe we even give shares to these creators for coming on and hosting a series where they can host, basically like create a topic on Wirlix, have the freedom to express themselves and post these videos on a recurring basis every week for 6 weeks. So we've like published that information on our website, and it's been going really well. Like the creators have been responding really well to it. Some of them have been asking for direct payment, as well. So I was just wondering, from your perspective, what your feedback was on maybe either giving them shares or directly paying for videos.
Yeah, it's a great question. Incidentally, I love the way that you're sort of seeding the content side, which is you're going out and you're getting the creators and you're convincing them to put videos on your platform. A lot of founders in this situation just sort of like build the app and then just like, I don't know, promote it in general and hope that people will sign up and decide to start producing content. And then they're frustrated when nobody actually does that. And so I really liked it. Instead of just trying to like, just like posting the app on Reddit and hoping that people come, you're actually going and you're like winning the content creators one by one, convincing them to join your site. I don't know if you know, but like Twitch, that's exactly how Twitch got started. Is Emmett, the founder of Twitch, would go and he would convince video game streamers to stream on Twitch one at a time, just like you're doing. And that was really, really core to like how it got started. So I think that's great. In terms of like, how do you get them to sign up? Giving them shares is probably not super scalable. It turns out it's going to be a real problem to have like a lot of people who have shares in your company. Like the US legal system isn't set up to have like thousands of random video streamers with shares in your company. But could it work for the first, dozen? Absolutely, totally. Yeah, like if that's what sells them, go for it. In terms of paying them, absolutely, you can. Like it could make sense to do that for the first two because you don't have that much to offer them initially. Like especially if you've raised a pre-seed round and so you have some like money to spend, that's a good way to spend the money to generate growth. I do think though that like you might not need to, like there might be other ways to convince them other than outright paying them. And one challenge with outright paying them is it can be a little bit hard to tell if you're paying them, if they really want to do it, or if you're just sort of like bribing them into do it. Sometimes like if you pay those early users, you have this sort of like adverse selection effect where you don't necessarily get the highest quality, most engaged users who actually want to use it. You're sort of like, you end up with kind of people who like just do like the bare minimum of work. And what you instead kind of want to do is you want to try to find out of all these influencers on TikTok and YouTube, the people for whom this idea really resonates, where you can convince them to do it by promising them love instead of money, by promising that you're going to promote their videos and by hand holding them and by making them feel special. Like they've never been reached out to by like a TikTok account manager to like tell them how special they are and how valued they are as a member of the TikTok community. So that's sort of the ideal way that you want to compete for their time and attention, is by love rather than money.
Okay, so I actually, I think that's really interesting because so my thought process, I'll give you like a couple of things that I've been thinking about is, so there's that initial part, right, of our application where it's that first video that somebody posts, on the feed. And then that second element of it is anybody can now respond to that video. So what I guess like what I am trying to hypothesize, or we have a hypothesis, but I'm trying to prove out too, is how many people can we convert that are just maybe silent, who are just scrolling through videos, who are now going to go, okay, I want to comment, and it's a quick 60-second video. And we have found that more of our users have commented on existing videos versus created their own topic. That is something that has been like a trending theme with at least the subset of these first active users that we have.
Yeah, and I'll bet that will continue even someday when you have 1 billion users. This is actually a general rule that's true across all user-generated content sites. So the thing that you're building for folks in the audience who might not know, it's called a user-generated content site like YouTube or TikTok, where the content is made by the users. And all user-generated content sites have what's sometimes called a user pyramid. And founders that aren't familiar with UGC sites don't always know about this wizard pyramid. So I'm just going to explain it because it might be helpful to you and also helpful to other folks. The typical wizard pyramid goes like this. Roughly 10% of your users will comment or otherwise engage with content that exists on the platform. They might respond to a poll. They'll do some sort of like lightweight, they'll upvote things or like things. They'll do some sort of like lightweight engagement. That's roughly 10% of the users who come and view the content, and only 1%, sometimes less, will actually create their own content. And so to get one content creator, you have to get 100 content viewers, because your conversion rate is only going to be about 1 in 100. And having a commenting feature is a great way to try to build people up that content pyramid. So it's not such a big leap where they have to go straight from viewing content to creating their own content. There's sort of a bridge in the middle where you can get them like a little bit more engaged, where they're commenting, they're responding to polls, they're liking content. And then you'll be able to convert just a small percentage of them into creators sometime.
Yeah, that's actually, it's very similar to, I guess, like the metrics that we're seeing too, is just at least getting that organic content going. We have like only a couple people now that are really like actively like, oh, okay, I want to comment on this, or if we post something, they'll actually, you know, engage with it. We do have a like button. Lots of people are liking videos, which is nice, but that's very quick. Obviously, they can just click a, you know, quickly, you know, click a heart. So yeah. Okay.
Cool. One last thought for you, and then we're going to switch to Q&A. Is in addition to tracking weekly active users, one thing that you might start thinking about tracking early on is what we call highly engaged users. So you said, so like your weekly active users, that's like anyone who comes and spends a minute in the app. You might start tracking highly engaged users, which is how many users spend 20 minutes in the app. Because like if someone's spending 20 minutes in your app, like they like the app, they're into this. And that number may be small at first, it may only be 5, but like if you can actually grow that number actually turns out to be sort of the leading indicator of success for consumer apps like this. Is you want to build a small core of people who are really engaged, who are addicted to your app, like the TikTok users are like addicted
right.
to, right?
How much time would you suggest, you know, having that be like 20 minutes? Is that 15 minutes? Like what metric maybe, yeah, would you suggest?
I think you want to define it sort of based on like, if somebody did this, you would consider them to be like a happy and successful user. Like anyone who spends X minutes in your app, you're like, oh yeah, they must really like this. And that number probably changes over time, because you've only got 150 videos now. So people can't spend hours in the app, they're going to run out of videos.
Right.
So it might be, you know, only 10 minutes at the start, but then over time, as the library grows, you sort of raise the bar for a highly engaged user. A highly engaged TikTok user now probably spends hours a week in the app.
Yes. So I see, just kind of identify it based on the total number of videos we have and what we think is successful in terms of maybe like even the percentage of total content that we have that someone's able to consume over the course of a week. Okay. Very interesting. Yeah.
Cool. It was great meeting you, Priyanka. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jared. It was great meeting you too.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Hi, Jared. I'm back.
All right. Hi, Joan.
We've got time for a few questions in the Q&A box. And people are rapidly upvoting. I can tee you up with the first one, which we might answer a little bit.
Okay, let's do it.
Sean asked, I know it's recommended that startups don't advertise. How should startups get users and grow? Is it best to do free marketing? What are the best ways to get the ball rolling?
Sure. Hi, Sean. Thanks for asking this question. Okay, so first off, I wouldn't say, you know, absolutely 100% no startup should ever run ads ever. Like, I think that's a little bit too much of a blanket rule. You can try running some experimental ads if you have enough money to do like a small amount of advertising. Sometimes it can be helpful in like seeing if the like trying to get your first users. The reason that it's hard to make advertising work is that sort of as an initial user acquisition strategy, it's so expensive. Advertising is so expensive because you're competing against the biggest companies in the world that are spending billions of dollars on advertising every year, and you're just a little company. And for most products and most ad channels, it's very difficult to get a lot of users via ads before your business is like at scale and you've raised a bunch of money from investors that you can like put into advertising. And that's why for most companies, like most of their initial user acquisition needs to be organic because advertising is just too expensive. And so, yeah, you're better off finding organic channels. And there's a second reason why organic channels are sort of like better fundamentally than ad channels, and it's because users that find you organically by you reaching out to them or them discovering you through a social media website or a community site or by getting an introduction to you, they have a fundamentally different relationship with your product. It's something that's more personal to them. It's something that they feel a commitment to. It's much easier to get those people to answer questions about your product, to get feedback from them, to get advice from them. People who just like found your product through Google tend to sort of be more like arm's length users where it's harder to get feedback from.
That makes sense. Patrick asked, how do you balance working on customer acquisition and product development?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Okay, so Patrick, instead of answering your question, I'm going to answer just a slightly different question, which is what mistakes do I see founders make when they try to balance working on customer acquisition and product development? And there's a very consistent pattern here. The most common mistake that I see founders make when they're trying to balance customer acquisition and product development is whichever one they don't like doing, they don't do enough of. So if you're a programmer and you're great at building products and you've never done sales before and sales sounds scary, you will almost certainly overinvest in doing product development and underinvest in doing like customer outreach. Versus if you're somebody who's worked in an industry for a long time and you know a lot of customers and you're good at doing sales and you're not technical and doing product development scares you, it will almost certainly be the opposite.
It's a good pattern to have picked up on. Okay. Ahmed asked, should I monetize my startup from the beginning or wait to get users first?
Yeah, so this is a great question. It comes up a lot. Here's what I'd say. You should monetize your startup as early as possible, but no earlier. So if you built a product and you have something that's usable, you should be trying to figure out whether this is something that people will pay for. Sometimes you can charge for your very first version. Sometimes your first version is so crappy that nobody will pay for it. But maybe you can get them to use it for free. If you're in that situation, sure, it's better to have free users than no users at all. But you want to be constantly thinking about how do you get to a version that somebody will pay for.
Nice. Rojal asked, when should we consider incorporating a startup?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I'll say a couple things. One, if you're working with a co-founder, incorporating your startup is a great way to set up sort of like clarity around the co-founder relationship, how much equity each of you owns in a company. If you're working with a co-founder or multiple co-founders and somebody leaves the team, having an incorporated company helps really provide clarity over whether the founder who's leaving is going to retain equity in the company or not and how much. It can be very helpful for sort of like managing co-founder relationships. So if you're working with a co-founder, it's something that you might want to do sooner rather than later. If you incorporate a US corporation, incidentally, it's pretty cheap and easy to do so. Joan, how much is it with the startup school deal that we have?
We have a 50% discount on the rate for Stripe Atlas's Delaware C Corp incorporation.
Yeah, I think like conceptually a good time to do it is when you're really starting to get serious about this company. You're thinking about going full time on it. You have like a paying user. You or you really think it's something that you're leaning towards really doing seriously, that's a good time to incorporate. If it's just something that just kind of a toy project that you're like playing around with and you don't really know if you're ever going to like work on it much, that's probably too early to incorporate. You should probably save your money and like try to see if this is really something that you want to do.
Yeah, that is good advice. And I'll add one caveat because I get this question a lot.
Oh yeah, please.
You can apply to IC in any state of being. It can
Oh
still
yeah,
be an idea. You could be incorporated. You could be incorporated as any type of company. The legal and finance team might help you change that around, but you don't have to be incorporated to apply.
great point, Joan.
Yes. And I think this might be our last one. We had so many good office hour conversations. What are some ways to make sure you have a unique and differentiated product if you're in a hyper competitive environment? Maybe if you're, yeah, this says like e-commerce marketplaces.
Yeah. So I feel like ideally, if you're going into a hyper competitive space, you start with a unique product. Like if you're going into a hyper competitive space, ideally, before you even decide to enter the space, the reason you decide to go into the space is because you have an idea, you have what we sometimes call a unique insight, which is like, hey, all these other people are doing e-commerce marketplaces, but they're missing this part of it. And this is my unique insight. I'm starting with a way to stand out. That is the ideal if you're going into a hyper competitive marketplace. If you don't have that, but you still want to go into it, the best way to come up with a unique insight is to talk to your users and be like, hey, do you use any of the products in this current space? And then there's like two forks. If they're like, yes, you're like, okay, what are your biggest problems with the product that you use? And if the answer is no, then your next question is, why not? Why don't you use any of these products? There's probably a good, if they're not using any of the products in the current space, that's a sign that there's a big opportunity. A great example of this is a company called Dropbox. And Dropbox was started by two founders in 2009. It's a file storage and sharing site, if you don't know it. And when Dropbox launched, there were already like 100 file storage and syncing sites. It was definitely a highly competitive market, but the market penetration of those products was really low. Most people didn't use any file storage or syncing product. And that was a really big clue that the current products weren't actually working for people, because even though there were like 100 of them, none of them were actually doing that well. And so if you're in a hyper competitive market, you really want to be thinking about, is this market saturated? Like, have they already soaked up all the potential users in this market? If that's the case, it might not be a great space. But if you're in a situation like Dropbox, where there's a lot of products, but there's still a lot of users that aren't using any of them, that's a good clue that there's an opportunity for a new product.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jared, and all of the founders who joined to talk with Jared during office hours, and everyone tuning in who asked questions and upvoted them. We're almost at the halfway point for the build sprint, which is hard to believe, but I'm wishing all of you the best of luck hitting your goals, and we will see you next week. Thanks, Jared.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.